So when did you first figure out that modern black culture was a joke? When did you first uh, figure out for yourself, and I don't care what race you are, this is going to be an open conversation, and I don't mind airing dirty laundry because somebody's got to do it. When did you first, realize that everything that is promoted and propped up in modern black culture is vile, disgusting, and a detriment to the very people it should be helping? When did you first figure that out? I'm very curious. This is a new channel, but I'd love to hear, or rather read in the comment section, when you first found that out. I found that out as a child, right? And of course, being a child, I didn't really have the words to kind of encapsulate my thoughts on that. I just had a sensation of there's something wrong with this. Case in point, right? My grandmother was actually a teacher, right? So you would think this wouldn't be as prevalent in my family, and my mom is educated and all this. But I remember talking to my little cousins as a 7-8-year-old kid, right? And there was a commercial about toothpaste or something. And they were like, you get your teeth all minty white, And I would sing that jingle because I just liked it, and I liked the idea of getting my teeth all minty white. It's a jingle. It gets in your head. You're a kid. You sing this shit, right? My cousins were like, you must want to be white. And I was like, what? They were like, you talk like a white kid. All that minty white stuff. And when you talk like a white kid. And they had taken my love for that jingle and turned it into me being white. And then I started hearing the comments like Oreo and all these other things. And I remember thinking, what does wanting to have healthy teeth have to do with being white? What does speaking proper English, as our grandmother was instructing us to do, have to do with being white? And I just remember being a kid like, what? I want to be white? But I love reading about Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and Malcolm X and, Marcus Garvey. And I like to read these books that grandma insists that we read. And I feel empowered by those things to hear about all these very powerful black people who made a change and did so while looking respectful and carrying themselves in a respectful way. So how does that make me want to be white? So I just was so confused, right? But that was the first inkling where I was like, this is odd. And then by contrast, right, we moved, right? So we were in the hood for a while. It's interesting. I've been in different tax brackets, different this, different that, different types of neighborhoods, some exclusively Asian, some almost exclusively black, some were a mixed bag. I've been all over, right? I found that once my cousins moved away, they moved to Nevada with their mom, right? And we moved out toward more of the Asian suburbs area, where it was 60% Asian, maybe, 20% Latino and 20% everything else, a little smattering of everything else, mostly Southeast Asian, right? When we moved out there, those comments stopped. Those comments of, oh, you want to be white because of the things I like, or the way I carried myself, or the way I spoke without slang and without this and that, right? I heard that less and less. Yet every time I went back to the old neighborhood where I run into all the older kids or the kids I'd hung out with previously in the hood, it was always like, oh, look at how you speak. So that was the first inkling I had that there's something kind of wrong with the way we view things. We view correct shit as the wrong thing. It is correct to speak English correctly. It is incorrect to speak English incorrectly. These are very simple concepts. So that was my first inkling, right? The second inkling was as I got older, college age, right? 18, 19, 20. Saw a lot of things. I remember I was hanging out at UCLA with my ex. No, not UCLA, Cal State LA. Cal State LA with my ex-girlfriend. And we were hanging out. And we were in African American studies She was an African American Studies major and a sociology minor. Or excuse me, a history minor. All this shit's running together on me. This is years and years ago. And I remember we were like hanging out. And I remember just how nasty some of the students spoke to each other. Just the way, just the way people conversed with each other was very much like a competition. It was very much us versus them thing. And I thought, if there's any place where blacks should have solidarity, it's an African American Studies class where the only thing we're striving to get is an A on the test. But I saw that like inherently we just beef with each other. We beef with each other. And even more so, we are gatekeepers, okay? But only to each other. We allow everybody else to come into things that are considered to be things that are a feature of our color. But we don't allow others who look like us to move within that in any individualistic way, right? So I noticed how, because I was a kid who was into rock, right? Because I was in my formative years in the suburbs, and I just like rock. As a guitar player, I find it a lot more fun than funk and blues. That's just me. They be talking about rappers or this or that. This person has beef with this person. This was none. I never gave a shit about any of that shit, right? I like rap, but I wasn't that deep into it. And so because I didn't know those things, and because I was a little punk rocker and I dressed up a certain way, because that's what you do when you're young, I was already a pariah. Without them getting to know me, getting to know my background, my activism, my family's background, which is my grandmother marched with Dr. King and Malcolm X, and campaigned for Kennedy, and my uncles were Black Panthers. Like 2 of my uncles were Black Panthers, and I did my own activism, and I fought for indigenous rights, and I fought for the rights of undocumented people. I've since changed my story on that. I am for immigration laws being enforced, but you're young and you're idealistic, and but things change. But they didn't stop to ask me any questions. They just looked me up and down and said, "You're not like us. They not like us. They not like us." That childish bullshit. Which is just such a stupid line. I'm like, wow. First of all, it's in proper English. They not like us. Because we can't say they're not like us. That's not cool enough. That's not cool enough. They not like us, right? So what do we do for those that are not like us within the black community? We eschew them. We shun them. And I tell you what, those are the very people who could help the black community elevate. But we like to shoot ourselves in the foot. So that was another inkling, just seeing how I was kind of not ostracized. I had friends, I had people I talked to, but I was always regarded with suspicion, like, what's wrong with you? That you don't know every lyric to this blah, blah, blah. And what's wrong with you that you don't dress the way I dress? And what's wrong with you that you don't use the slang that I use? Because we all know that if you deviate from the negro hive mind, right, you are a threat. Whether you intend to be or not, they're threatened, okay? And I think it's because it makes them feel stupid. But that's another point. Another inkling I had, as I got older, right? Because I started out as a punk rock, anarcho-primitivist almost. Like, fuck modern shit, let's do something different, let's go back to the old days and just live off the land. I was that deep into it. I was that deep into the scene, right? As I got older, and I started to lean more conservative, okay? And I started to be more open about it, because I'd always in my head leaned conservative without even realizing it. I think I fought against it because I felt it went against different scenes I was in, which is not a wise reason to, subvert your own thought. But once I started expressing it more, I noticed that there would never ever be a situation where they would actually speak to my argument. They would just say, "Hey, you're black, how can you say that?" hey, you're black. How can you feel this way? And I'm like, I got a brain and I can observe objective reality and I can look at numbers and I can look at cause and effect. And that is why I have come to the conclusion I have on many of these issues. I don't know why I have to stick my head in the sand, okay, and keep voting for the same bullshit people, okay, who rob us blind, the Al Sharptons of the world, you know, the Maxwells of the world, all the people who run the democratic cities that are basically shooting ranges, drug trafficking facilities, empty houses where you find a body or two in the house. You know what I'm talking about. Slums, decay, poor test scores, right? Why should I vote for these people who seem to be doing a terrible job? If you have all those things going on in your city, you're doing a terrible job. Somebody's doing a terrible job, right? So the Negro hive mind makes it so that if you don't want to go along with what they believe and their victim narrative and all their bullshit, that you are a problem. And I was made to feel like I was a problem. Again, they would never contend with my argument. They would only go after the fact that I am a part of the diaspora and I need to be intellectually and mentally in lockstep with these people. And nothing could be further from the truth for me. I don't see many positive features in black culture, modern black culture. I see a lot of beautiful things. When you watch old movies or you speak to older people, you can tell they had a better glue to keep the community together. I love when I run into older black people in their 80s, 90s, and you can see how respectfully they speak to people. You got some ratchets in that age range too. You got some ratchets, but generally they're more respectful. They're generally more concerned with treating you like an individual rather than trying to put a mark on you. Or I'll say this, rather than stepping back, observing you, and seeing if you're like them or not. And then they treat you a certain way. No, the older people will treat you as an individual because the Negro hive mind was there back in their day, probably for survival, but it wasn't as stringent. And it wasn't so based on, okay, if you want to be social, this is the way you have to be. It was more so based on, we need to survive, so we got to stick together, kind of a thing. So I enjoy talking to older people because that's an example of black culture that I would have liked to have been a part of, where there's community, where there's peace, we could get together. Nobody's going to pew pew the whole place up. Nobody's going to go out of their way to try to come in and dominate. Okay? The men that are revered are men that are hardworking and honest and are providers and protectors. And the women that are revered are kind and nurturing and are also hardworking and are also honest and are concerned with their children just as the men are, and put their children above their selfish needs just as the men should, right? That's the black culture I want to be a part of, right? But those different stages of my life informed why I feel the way I feel about black culture. Now, in that first video, I got a few comments, and one was, oh, you need to groom yourself better, you need to do this. I probably do, but fuck it, that has nothing to do with my point. One guy said, why do you look 80 and sound 10? And to him I say, I don't think I look a day over 68. But that's your typical Negro hive mind response. They don't have anything to say. They don't have the intellectual ability to counter your arguments. So what they do is they try to come at you in a very shallow, childish, low IQ way, right? It's almost like you solve the Pythagorean theorem or you do some great equation in front of somebody and they turn around and say, yeah, well, your mama. That's all the Negro hive mind has. That's all the Negro hive mind has It's fun to laugh at. It's fun to watch them skip over everything you just said and get to, yeah, well, your shoes is dirty. Let me tell you something. I walk around this world, grizzled beard, same beanie on all the time. I do that because what I'm doing out here is working. I work for my living. Okay? There are many people in the Negro hive mind who look good and look flashy, but they live off a woman, or they live in their mama's house and they're not employed, but somehow they always have money for nice shoes and all the latest fashions and all these things. And that is another feature of the modern black culture that I find disgusting. The materialism, the shallow, on the surface appreciation of things. Okay? Nobody has to find me attractive. Nobody has to find me stylish. Okay? I don't even know why I would be concerned about something like that. I don't even know why a full-grown man would even comment on my appearance. You don't have to find me beautiful in any sense. All I want is for the people to hear my voice and think about a different way we could be as black people toward one another. Think about how we can represent ourselves better than putting on Super Bowl halftime shows where people are twerking or fucking crip walking, okay, or mimicking sets or anything like that. Just listen to the message, because I gotta say, as I look through YouTube, I'm feeling happy and I'm feeling inspired, because more and more of us are coming out as conservatives. More and more of us are coming out as free thinkers. More and more of us are critiquing black culture, modern black culture. Many of us are taking issue with and putting the fire to the feet of the Negro hive mind. Okay? Many of us are waking up. And what these ratchets need to know, and what these low IQs need to know, is there's going to be a separation. There's going to be a separation between those of us who want to be individualistic free thinkers who could still get together and peacefully resolve our issues, and those of you who want to be fly, and those of you who want to say all the right things so you can fit in, even though you haven't thought about it, or even though you might internally disagree with it, but you're so cowardly that you have to go along with it because you don't want people to call you lame, right? There's going to be a separation between us. Many of us have already lost empathy for the ratchet. I have no empathy for the fucking ratchet. I'm going to tell you right now. I have no empathy for the ratchet because, as I said, starting from in my single digits, I knew there was something wrong with them. I knew that there was their desires for me, in terms of their desire to make me conform to the Negro hive mind code of ethics and standards of behavior. I knew that all the things they wanted from me were things that would harm me, things that would make me less. Forget how to speak English properly. Go into a job interview saying ain't and I and what's good and all that bullshit so you can prove that you're real. All that shit. Support and revere music in which black women are demeaned and black men are shot up and drugs are talked about like they're candy and the whole block got shot up and blah blah blah. Enjoy that type of music, right? Rather than listening to B.B. King or like, In Living Color, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, actual songwriting. Enjoy that goofy shit. Enjoy the shit where the guys walk around with their pants hanging off their ass, even though in prison that's a sign that you take it up the ass. That's another story, right? Be a part of the code and ethics and standards of behavior of the Negro hive mind, right? I knew that was bullshit from before I knew how to write in cursive, okay? So I'm just curious again, when did you first feel or have an instinct that the Negro hive mind, aka black modern culture, was a bad thing? When did you first feel that? I'm very curious about that. You know, it's amazing to me. The Negro hive mind, even though it consists of very stupid people who are weak-willed, who are conformists, who I don't want to say have low IQs, but they behave as though they have low IQs, who basically act like children who want to be accepted in high school, who basically, do everything they can to ruin their own lives and ruin their own communities, but they look so good while doing it, right? Right? Like, when did you know that these people were a detriment to you and everybody that looks like you? I'd be very curious to hear, because I've sensed that from an early age, and I really cannot wait until we can actually separate from the rat shit. I don't know how we're gonna do it. I don't know who's gonna initiate it. I'm just trying to throw my little 2 cents in and maybe wake other people up, because we're getting tired. We're getting tired of having to intellectualize Play-Doh. The Kendrick Lamar statement was dense and stupid. The I'm gonna stay ghetto shit is not something to be proud of. The I'm gonna remind everybody of gang culture shit is not something that I want to be associated with. Why do you think that we're the poorest per capita? Perception matters. Perception absolutely matters. When people look at you and they associate you with gangs, they don't want to hire you. When people look at you and they associate you with baby mamas and baby daddies and fucking horrible, atavistic, animalistic behavior, they probably don't want to hire you. I wouldn't hire you. Why should they hire you? Why should anyone want to be associated with someone whose earnest desire is to be associated with everything bad? So I ask you again, and please put this in the comments if you feel compelled to. When was your first instinct that the Negro hive mind, aka the ratchet chorus, was a detriment to you and all of black society?